Well, good evening, guys. Kevin the Comic Doctor coming to you with another edition of One on One. And tonight's a special occasion, guys, because this is something I've wanted to talk about for a very long time. Canadian price variance. That's right. Not a heck of a lot of information out there on these. Well, there is if you know where to look. And we've met the guys some of the guys that are behind that website, some of the pioneers of this awesome genre. So let me introduce you my guests today. Three amazing guests to talk to us again all about Canadian price variance. And by the way, if you have any questions about Canadian price variance, stick around and ask your questions and we'll get to them as soon as we can. All right, guys, let's see if I can get this thing working. There they are. How are you?
Hi.
Good.
Hi, Kevin.
Right. How you doing? First, I'm gonna introduce Angelo first, down over there, because Angelo actually was the fella who kind of got me in tune more with Canadian price variance. Angelo's an old friend and client of mine. I've dealt with Angelo for many years now, and he is probably one of the most passionate guys I ever met. Passionate about what? Canadian price variance. So I actually tapped him on the shoulder initially, but he said, Kev, I know I'm a collector, but you got to talk to the man, the real pioneer behind Canadian price variance. And that's Doug Sulipa, who is right beside me here, right there. And Doug is, he's a Canadian comic store owner, has been involved in comics since, probably since the day I was born. I was born in 71, Doug. Were you doing it in 71? I think you were.
My first ad was in Rocket Splash 1970.
There you go. So, and you've been a part of the, you've also been a part of the Overstreet guide since 72, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, 72 is when I became an advisor.
That's right. So yeah, you know your stuff. You know your stuff.
Oh, yeah.
That's for sure. And just below me we got Greg Holland. Now, Greg Holland is a numbers man. He's a stats guy. He's also an Overstreet advisor, and he has a website called cgcdata.com where he takes all the numbers and stats from CGC and lays it all out for everybody to check out. He's also, I don't know if I said this already, also an Overstreet advisor. Welcome, Greg.
Thank you.
Yes. And I don't know if Angelo, did I say hi to you? Welcome to you as well, of course, sir.
Oh, hi to you too.
There you go.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, no, this is, I mean, honestly, you know as well as I do, this was a long time in the making. I didn't even have the software to get everybody on here. Now I do. So I'm very excited to talk about Canadian price variance, answer any questions that some of our subscribers have regarding that as well. So, I think we should start from the beginning. And since we were talking about the 1970s, and I think I even heard a late 60s indication there, Doug, when did you start noticing this thing called the Canadian price variant?
Well, I actually noticed them probably in the 1990s, but I didn't do much about them until about the year 2001. So it actually started with a collector named John Goodrich, who basically wanted one copy of everything Spider-Man on the planet Earth. So if it was on paper or a toy or a record or a poster, he had to have it all in every language from every country in the world. So I started by selling him. He had all the regular stuff. He had the Amazing Spider-Man set and all that. But then I talked to him about the Canadian price variance, which he'd never heard of, and had to explain it to him. And of course, he instantly had to have them all. Condition didn't really matter as long as he always prefers the highest grade. But
right,
the most important thing was having one of everything. So I think his collection ended up having like 30,000 items in him. He passed away about 2 years ago, so his son is dealing with it right now. So
wow.
We'll see what happens to that. But anyway, so I think the initial pull on every appearance of Spider-Man between was 82 to 86, I think, Angelo, was it?
Which one?
For the Canadian variants, I think it was November 82 to, August 86?
October 82.
October 82 to August 86, right?
For DC, it's September 1988, and for Marvel, it's August 1986.
Right. So anyway, in that time period, there's about, I think it was 800 or 900 different Spider-Man appearances, and even a one-panel cameo we had to have. So I started by selling them to John Goodrich, and then once John Goodrich had him, he told his friend Steve, who was another Spider-Man completionist, so I sold the second set. And he told the third Spider-Man guy, and already I was running out of things. The first things I was running out of was the Marvel Star cartoon comic appearances.
Yes.
So I think I ran into about 5 or 6 of those and a couple other reprint issues and stuff like that. Like there was a reprint of Spider-Man appearing in a Western or something. I can't even remember what it was anymore. Anyway, so that was that. And the next person who came along was the Paul Herbert and his friend Ralph. They collected every appearance of Sherlock Holmes ever in a comic.
Okay.
Or any humor, anything with even a deerstalker hat. So they bought a few hundred items, both of them. And then the next person who came along was Massimo Introvine from Italy. He actually was trying to assemble the world's most complete appearance of vampires in comics. He actually wrote the Vampire Encyclopedia in 2008. I think he had about 25,000 different appearances of vampires in comics.
Now, Doug, this is you selling books to collectors,
Right.
who didn't know much about Canadian price variants. And you say, hey,
Exactly.
check this out. So you started the trend. People, oh, this is different than my Amazing Spider-Man 252.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Okay.
So anyway, Massimo in Italy, he assembled this massive collection, eventually made it into a book. And it's the actual items are stored in a museum in Italy. I think it's called Sensor or something like that. Anyway, I don't know if you could actually visit it. I think it's a research museum. Anyway, it went on after that. There was Bob Opper, who collected every appearance of Black Hawk, and on it went. And then I went into other Canadian variants. Pat Simpson had to have all the Del Goldkey Whitman Western publication variants. So I went through everything for him. And this mostly happened in a period of 9 years between 2001 and 2010. And I kept writing about it in my market reports for the Overstreet Annual Guide.
Gotcha.
And so people would contact me from that. So I sold even more. So I think within that first 9 or 10 years, I sold around about 5,000 Canadian variants.
So it's your fault. It's your fault.
It's my fault. Initially, though, people didn't care like condition like now. Now it's all about condition.
Right.
So initially, it was about just getting them at all because they were that hard to get because people didn't save them. And the difference is that the Canadian price variants are actually newsstand editions, just like the U.S. newsstand editions. But the main difference is we have 1/10 the population, so they're about 10 times as scarce as the American newsstand editions.
Right. I'm putting some different ones up on the screen here. Of these comics here are some of the more popular Canadian.
These are basically the holy grails of the 1980s Canadian variants.
And these
are the top 20s. These are the top 20.
These are the top. These are the top 20 right here. Okay. So is G.I. Joe this one here number one?
G.I. Joe is number one, and it's extremely undervalued.
Okay.
It's nearly impossible to get in 9.8. I think there's one known copy, and that is going to have the value of a major Bronze Age key issue one day if it ever hits the market for sale.
So what kind of money could something like that bring in? So, versus, you get a 9.8 direct copy.
Yeah.
Versus a 9.8 Canadian price variant. I know there's a price guide over on, and we're going to get to that later, the Canadian price variant website. But just in your opinion,
well,
what do you think
my opinion is $10,000 for a 9.8 if it hit the market. Angelo feels it would be even higher than that, but we'll wait and see.
Okay. So these here are, again, guys, are some of the holy grails. 1, 2, and 3. And again, you can see these over at their website. And by the way, the Canadian price variant website I have it listed down below in the info section here on YouTube. I'll also put other websites on there. I'll put Greg's websites on there as well later on, if you want to peruse that as well. But check. How about this Batman? I see this in the shop all the time. Batman.
People love that book.
Yeah, the McFarlane, that's a huge one too. The Swamp Thing's massive as well.
The Batman is recently being touted as a Spawn prototype, that cover, because it looks like a Spawn cape.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It does look like a Spawn cape.
Yeah. So
again,
and Transformers in the last few years has really gone through the roof in demand.
Okay.
There's a lot of copies out there, but there's not a lot of Canadian variants, and there's certainly not a lot of high grade ones out there anymore because they're all in permanent collections already.
Now, maybe one of you guys can, answer this question. People always refer to the Canadian price variants as newsstands.
That's what they are. So actually what it comes down to is in that period in the 80s, most comics by collectors were bought in comic shops, which is the direct editions, which are the common editions.
Okay.
So the newsstand editions in general are sold in places like drugstores and they were often sold to non-collectors or maybe beginner collectors who didn't keep care of their comics as well. And a lot of the stuff basically got thrown out over the years by the mothers, the evil mothers, throwing out our comic book collections.
Yes, evil mothers. I've met him.
And so in general, newsstand edition comics are usually lower grade than direct editions, especially in the 80s when they outnumbered the newsstand editions and especially the number of copies that were saved. So the newsstand ones are scarcer and high grade. They have a lower survival rate. And then, of course, Canada has 10% of the population of U.S., so that makes them 10 times scarcer than the U.S. Newsstand edition. So in general, I think they're if you look in the CGC census as far as high-grade copies go, in general, they're about 50 times scarcer than your regular direct edition in high grade. There's a lot of trashy low-grade copies around.
Okay.
But not of the non-Marvel DC stuff. The non-Marvel DC stuff, there's not a lot left, period. So the Marvel DC stuff is saved, and the non-Marvel DC stuff, like the Archies, for example, even lower survival rates.
And we were talking last night, well, that's the Archie, the TMNT books as well.
Yeah.
The Archie publications of that as well are, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, the Archie... Actually, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Adventures. There was two series. The first one is a 3-issue miniseries. The second, that was from 1988. The second series went from started in 1989 and went for 72 issues. So that's the ongoing series. Big difference here. So the original limited series, 3 issues from 1988. There's actually 5 printings.
Right.
There's four first printings. So there's a U.S. direct edition, there's a U.S. newsstand edition, there's a Canadian direct edition, there's a Canadian newsstand edition, and just to confuse it all, the last edition is called the 5th printing, which really isn't. It's just a reprint, where there's 4 first printings. But the confusion out there is unbelievable because they're not properly listed on the CGC labels or anywhere else. So there actually are 5 printings, 4 first printings, and 1 reprint, which is the 5th printing. So it's very confusing to people, but I figured this out about 10 years back, and it just needs to get out there. Even CGC's labels are all wrong too.
They are, a lot of incorrect CGC labels.
Oh yeah.
Just to add, also a big collector who's also very knowledgeable is Bill when it comes to the turtles. There's also the guy in Sal who helped expand the Archies. Yeah. And Doug, don't forget to mention also the Quebec effect because of the population, the French population.
I'll let you explain that.
It's just there's obviously a population is quite large in French, so not everyone that will buy comic books will buy them in French. There will probably be héritage that they would buy, also other books. So that's pretty much in a nutshell.
What's the population of Quebec right now?
Well, there's the article. I have to go look. The population of Quebec right now, I don't know if it's a little over 8 million. I believe. I could be wrong. Don't quote me. But a majority of the population is French-speaking. How many of those? There are French-speaking Canadians that do buy English comics, but there are some that don't. So if you compare it to Ontario and other provinces, clearly, there will be some that would be more focused on buying the French ones.
So it could potentially be like 12 times scarcer instead of 10 times scarcer.
Possibly. There is an article we wrote a couple years back with Ben, who's a curator also of the CPV site, that it's probably quite long. It's a very interesting read if you have a glass of wine with it as well.
Lord Thoth just told us the population of Quebec is 8.83 million.
There you go.
Okay.
So I wasn't off. A little over 8 million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Mike Evans actually has a good question. We talked about this last night when we did our kind of our pre-show test of the technology here. He asked this question right here. Marvel printed a lot of their comics in Ontario, did they not, during the 80s?
Quebec.
There you
Quebec.
go.
Montreal.
Montreal,
it was Ronald's Printing, which went on to become, I think, Quebecois, and I think it's still out there in some. I don't know what the new variation of it is, but I think the printing company is still there, isn't it, Angelo?
I'm not quite certain about that detail, but I do know, I think about 10 years ago, there was still something in the works there as well.
Yeah.
Same site as well.
Well,
does that mean that now Marvel had all their comics printed there?
yes, exactly. In the 80s,
Yes.
pretty much all the Canadian variants and the U.S. Direct and the U.S. newsstand were all printed in Quebec.
So every
But
single comic
if
book
you
is
look
a
inside
Canadian
the comic-
price variant.
But if you look inside the indices, it says printed in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
They don't recognize where it was printed. It's printed for an American company, so that's what they put in the indices.
Wow.
But they had to travel across the border to the United States. So actually, there was a period where we got Ronald's boxes, but they kind of stopped that because I don't think they wanted people to know they were coming from Ronald's. So they would come in a Marvel box or a DC box. But if you were ordering direct in that time period,
Well, listen, I feel bad because Greg's sitting quietly there, and I have to ask him. He's the only American on the panel right tonight. And we three Canadians are talking about it. We're saying, there's not very many Canadian price variants out there. They're very, very rare. Well, Greg is a numbers guy, so let's ask him. Greg, what's the deal with Canadian price variants? Are they as rare as Doug and Angelo are saying?
Well, there's all kinds of reasons to collect books, right? And so one of them you have to ask yourself as an American, do I even care if something was available in Canada and it looks a little different up there?
Right.
To me, it is a numbers game. It's a bit of a numbers game to say, well, first of all, how many of each did they print? Because if the company just literally printed a third of this and a third of that and a third of the other, then we wouldn't even be talking about this. We'd just be saying, well, here in Southern United States, it's most likely that I would see the direct edition. We had comic book stores in the 80s, or I would see the U.S. newsstand edition because we had, grocery stores or drug stores or whatever. I would rarely see a Canadian copy, but why would I care? Because, Spider-Man is not a Canadian hero. He's New York, New York City based character. Batman, is Gotham, but we think of him as a U.S. He's Gotham in the United States, wherever Gotham is, you want to say it's Chicago or whatever. But the one character that you have to say, well, he's Canadian, obviously, is Wolverine. And so to me, I actually have an affinity for whatever that oldest Canadian price variant Wolverine comic would be. Which, of course, by now I've figured out it's actually that one right there. It's Wolverine #2, which has a Canadian price variant. It's 75 cents on the cover. It has the barcode on the bottom. That makes it a newsstand, and the 75 cents makes it a Canadian newsstand. Well, that's the only Canadian edition that has a price variant, because the direct edition already says, in very small printing, it says 75 cents for Canada.
Right.
And so on the one hand, we've got the numbers that we can say about the population of the United States and Canada, but they did print a Canadian price on the direct editions. And so direct editions filled part of the market in Canada, and they're exactly the same direct edition that we had here in the United States. And so, I'm a little bit worried about using ideas like 10% or 12%, because some portion of Canada did get direct editions and they did charge 75 cents because it was the smaller price on the price of the direct edition. And so you could be in Canada and you could get a U.S. direct edition, but it's actually the Canadian direct edition as well, because it's got that little price on it. It also has a price there for the United Kingdom on a lot of the Marvel books. And so I'm really more interested in what is out there. out there either being things that are being graded by CGC, which they put in the census, but it's been already mentioned that sometimes they don't identify them correctly. Well, we've got numbers. We know the numbers aren't great, but at least we have something to work with. We also have our own eyeballs. If we go to eBay and we type in Wolverine number 2, 1982, this book will come up. It doesn't have to be graded because we're looking at each copy ourselves. And if we see a barcode on the bottom, then we know it's going to be a newsstand that's either United States newsstand or Canadian newsstand. And then we can look at the price. And if it's 60 cents, we know it's a United States newsstand. If it's 75 cents with a barcode, it's a Canadian. And we can kind of just, grab a pencil and make some tally marks and see just of the copies that are available on eBay at any given time, what percent would we say are Canadian, what percent look like U.S. newsstand, and what percent are direct editions, which are also Canadian direct editions because they have a Canadian price on there right next to the U.S. price. And I think that when we do those types of things and do all the different ways we could run numbers, we can look at actual sales of CGC graded books on GPAnalysis. George down in Australia runs all the numbers he has available to him. He's got them going back 20-something years now. And just recently, he's double-checked and made sure that he's identifying Canadian price variance, even if CGC gets it wrong. He tries to get it right. And so we've got some numbers, and they're part of the articles that we have on the CPVPriceGuide.com website. There's articles about what we see in the census. I've written a few of those. There's articles about what we see in the GPAnalysis. I've written a few of those. And then there's what you can do yourself. Just you don't even have to use Wolverine number 2. Pick any book that you want to get a general idea of maybe what's in the market. The more popular, the better. Because if there's only 3 on eBay, you don't want to say a third of this and a third of that.
Sure.
You want to have 50. And then if you want to say, well, only 1 or 2 out of every 50 seem to be a Canadian price variant, well, make a note and do it again in 6 months and see if it's jumped or if it's the same or if it's gone down. And I think for the most part, you'll get the idea that around maybe 3%. Rather than 10 or 12, maybe 3% of a Marvel or a DC book that has a Canadian price variant, a Canadian newsstand price variant. Actually, that graphic you just had up
put it back on again for you.
Shows that the direct editions do have a Canadian price. There it is, right under the UK price.
That's right.
So some portion of that direct edition is serving that Canadian market.
Sorry, guys.
1980.
There you go.
And we got to put some of our direct editions into Canada, and it served a portion of the Canadian population, and so an even smaller portion probably served the Canadian newsstand population. And for the reasons you pointed out, if I was in a drugstore buying a comic book with my mother, number one, she doesn't want to give me the money for a comic book that she's already having subscriptions and they're expensive. Meanwhile, if you have a mother that takes you to the comic book shop, the real comic shop with the direct editions in the 1980s, and she takes you there every week, she's less likely to throw everything out. All that time and effort into it. If you get a newsstand, it's because she already had to go to that store anyway. She already had to go to the grocery store. She already had to go to the pharmacy. She didn't make a special trip for you to collect comics. She was doing other things, and you went along with her, and she wanted to shut you up with a comic and maybe a candy bar and a Coke. That's the moms who threw it all away. You threw away the candy bar or whatever. They know you threw away the Coke bottle. So why would you need to hang on to all those shut up magazines? Those are the ones that got away.
Don't forget the wire racks and the dog-eared copies and all these.
Bending them down and spinning them.
The
one that actually happened to me, it was a grocery store in my town, and the magazine rack was next to the produce section. And so when they wanted to water the produce with mist, with water mist, it landed on the magazine. I can find some of my original
hurts my heart.
Books, and they just have the tiny little raised bubbles on the cover from each time they got misted when they were sitting in the grocery store.
And don't forget the the newsstand edition, they slopped ink on the edges of a lot of the books too, and made them look worse too. So that's another reason that people wanted the direct ones. They didn't have to put up with that anymore.
Oh,
Actually, I think they kind of got rid of that practice somewhere in the mid to late 80s. But and they used to date stamp them all and handwrite the dates on the cover. And a lot of people hate that. And there's people who actually collect ones with date stamps and handwritten dates on the covers. Yep. There's people who collect anything out there.
Oh yeah,
right.
When I'm cleaning comic books, some guys don't erase any pencil marks. Leave all the pencil marks. I want the pencil mark, the names, the dates. They don't want to change it, right?
Yeah.
But my question is this: why would they bother with the 75-cent price variant in the first place? You just like Greg said, they had the direct edition with the UK price and the Canadian price. What was the logic behind creating this 75-cent version?
Very easy. Very easy. The ones that were wholesaled to the direct market, they were giving 60% off to the distributor, and the distributor was giving the big customers 50% off and the smaller customers 40% off. But the newsstands, for an example, Canadian News would give you 30% off, and it was returnable. The directs were not returnable. So they had to distinguish returnable from non-returnable books.
There you go.
So that's the big reason.
We have some questions here, guys. Let me just throw them out there. Anybody who wants to answer.
Before we get into the questions, just to add something to what Greg said.
Sure.
Also, there's a lot of books that are in newsstands and they're labeled from CGC as Canadian price variant. So it goes the other way around. It's not just books that are mislabeled as Canadian price variants and they are not, but the other reverse that. And I have books at home that are with the Canadian price variants and they are not.
I just sold one this week. I had to explain it to the customer and reduce the price because CGC messed up and put Canadian price variant on a direct edition.
Now that being said, CGC should change that label for free, right? They should. Yeah. So if you have, go ahead.
The problem is, what is it? I think you have 14 days to give it back to them.
No,
otherwise it costs you.
No, not with incorrect labels. If the slab is damaged, you have 14 days. But if you buy a book that's mislabeled, go to your local your authorized CGC dealer, and they can ship it back for you, and they'll correct that label.
Oh, see, something I didn't know. I'm glad you told me that.
If I could add to that, I tried because I had a few of them, and they said no. But then when I tried again with maybe 3 or 4 books, it said yes. So Comic Link sent them to them, and I'm scratching my head. Here, it doesn't make sense. It goes, oh well, we can't. Okay, so I broke it up a little bit at a time, and they were sent in. So it doesn't make sense sometimes.
Because realistically, even if it's a Canadian price variant, it's still, I guess, a newsstand, right? It's still a newsstand. It doesn't have the Canadian on there. I get what you're saying. They're not incorrect, right? But to call an American newsstand Canadian, that's a different story. That's completely wrong, right?
Yeah.
Let's take a couple of these questions here. Warren asked this question here. You guys will know this better than I do. I've got Transformers 1 through 19 CPV. I think they stopped the CPV at 20. Am I wrong?
Not sure. I'd have to look on the site.
I think on our site we don't have some CPVs.
Oh, you know what? It's the years. It might be the years. What is Transformers started in 84, and it only goes up to August of 86.
August of 86 is number 19.
Yeah, so is that what it is? There you go. There's your answer there. So that's why it only goes that far.
Okay.
Was it DC? If it was it. Sorry, go ahead.
If there is a 20, CGC has not graded it and identified it as such. They have 119 they've graded, and they have a 1. They have several 1s, 2, an 8, and a 10, and so they have not graded all of the CPVs for Transformers 1 through 19.
Oh, there you go.
I could add to that the last one is 19, and it's I guess August 1986. I have one, but the number 20 is not a Canadian price variant because they stopped making the Canadian price variants after number 19.
All right, there you go.
It's
Marco Coletta. Well, I think we answered your question, Marco, already, so I'm not going to bother answering that one again. I think Greg explained that quite nicely. And then This one's for Greg here, because we talked about this last night, Greg. Did Wolverine Limited #1 from 82 not have a CPV?
I wish it did. I would make that my favorite CPV, but it did not have one. There is a U.S. newsstand price. It's 60 cents on the cover. It has a barcode. So if Wolverine Limited 1 had a CPV, it would have a barcode and it would be 75 cents. And as far as I know, that does not exist.
Well, that's because it's September of 82, which is 1 month too early.
There you go.
There you go.
It's a date thing, guys. It's just a date thing.
Yeah.
I think we kind of answered this already, sort of. Fatal 007 says, should CPVs command a premium? If so, what percentage?
Ooh.
Supply and demand.
Supply and demand.
Yeah.
Depends how popular.
So yeah, like Aryan, nobody cares. So I mean, it's still going to be like an Aryan. Just as an example, is an unpopular comic, but in a newsstand edition in 92 or higher, it's actually a scarce book. So just like all Canadian newsstand variants from the 80s. So even in an unpopular title like that is worth about $10 in 92, just because it's hard to get.
Okay, so supply and demand.
But so there's kind of a minimum price. We have it on our website for the Canadian price fairs. I think we have a $10 minimum for a 9.2 from the 80s, just because they're tough to get. So that's kind of the minimum. That's just a small premium for the cheaper books, but the premiums begin with demand. So like that's why Spider-Man 252 brings a huge premium, because it's endless demand.
That's right.
Even though it's a very common book.
Well, the thing that matters the most, and this is a little bit harder to explain, but we can try, is what did Canadian direct edition retailers do about the Canadian newsstand price variance? If their shops had plenty of a comic book, then they're not going to go out and rescue or save or double their inventory with Canadian price variant newsstands.
Right.
They didn't do it. It was in the 1980s. They had plenty of stock. So they let those books sell the way they would normally sell and get returned the way they would normally get returned. So a book like Amazing Spider-Man 252 was popular immediately in Canada, in the United States, everywhere. And so the newsstands, Canadian or not, were bought up by collectors. They were bought up in higher quantities. You wanted 5 copies, you wanted 50 copies, whatever. Retailers wanted to go buy them and then sell them in their shops. They had sold out of the direct editions. Those newsstands, both American and Canadian, are in existence today because the people who normally would sell direct editions didn't have enough. They went and they raided the newsstand.
I did that with that Wolverine 1.
So you
Wolverine
will find 2 books, maybe 3, but 2 for sure.
Yeah.
There are tons of
Thor.
Spider-Man 352 and
Thor.
Thor 337.
Yeah.
And it's because retailers like Doug, I'm going to point out,
That's
went
me.
out there and they rescued those books for us here in the future. They rescued the books for us on 40 years later. The actions of retailers like Doug in the first 4 weeks, or let's say 4 months, however long those newsstands existed before they got returned, probably in the first 4 days, made all the
there's a 2-week lapse between when the direct editions came to the comic store and the newsstand editions went on the newsstands in Winnipeg. Anyway, I'm pretty sure it's like
and
that.
And it gave
everywhere.
you 2 weeks for you to sell out and then to go
buy
and
more.
just gather them all up. Basically.
Yeah.
That's never thought of that.
And Canadian Lose loved me because I never even returned. Even when I opened my store in '74, I never returned anything. So
right.
When
Well,
I
you didn't
walked
need
in,
to as a direct buyer. You had no returns.
no.
So even when you went out and bought barcodes, you didn't need to return them because you knew how to run your own inventory. You were not a return guy.
There you go. So and that's why they love me, and that's why I got first priority because I never returned anything. So if I wanted 1,000 copies, they knew they'd never see them again.
That's great. Yeah, that's great.
And so to get back to the original question, what books would Doug is our perfect example. What books does Doug know are big books now that he knows he did not go get any of the barcodes? He had plenty of the directs, so he did not go get any barcodes. They went through their regular life cycle. They disappeared. Now, if somebody put them in a warehouse somewhere, they survived where they shouldn't have survived. They should have been recycled or whatever. That's a different question. But we know that Spider-Man 252 and we know that Thor 337, they exist in all of the CPV grades.
Yeah.
I mean, just wait, you will find
I had a lot of Thor 337s.
Yeah.
Newsstand,
I think the third one that I was going to say, the third one is Secret Wars #8. I think those got rated. Plenty of copies of those exist. Thor 338 is right there with 337. So the real question is, what are the key issues in that time window from 82 to 86 that we know that Doug didn't go and he didn't get a bunch of the CPVs?
Well, let's ask him.
DC Comics and non-number ones. They're the main ones.
So a Batman like this, you wouldn't have have rated. Nope. All right.
No.
So books like that.
No.
You know, some maybe these.
Even the Marvel team up. No, I wouldn't have rated that one because it was non-number one and the demand wasn't high enough to be worth the trip.
What about Star Wars?
Star Wars, Star Wars initially from 77 to about 80 sold gangbusters, and then it really died down fast.
Well, there was no demand. There was no bid.
That is on the screen right now.
Actually, believe it or not, I know this is hard to believe now because of how it's gone in the last few years, but I think late 80s and most of the 90s, to get rid of Star Wars comics, I had to tell them about 70% off guide in lots to get rid of them.
Me too. I had so many Star Wars, like 100 of each, almost every issue in the set. Number one, I had like 500 copies. So I started selling sets in Comic Buyer's Guide, like 20 issue runs. And to get them to sell at all, I tried half price, didn't work, 60% didn't work. 70% off was the magic price that they started selling. Same with good old Captain Britain's. I had bought a store that folded in Winnipeg that ordered direct from Britain. So I had 300 or 400 copies each of Captain Britain 1 to 11. So I was selling sets of 1 to 11 for $39 on eBay for like 10 years. Speaking of Britain, that's a good segue because this is a good question right here. What are the thoughts on CPV being more expensive because of rarity, but UK price variants being cheaper?
Well, UK
I hope
has
they stay cheaper. I hope they stay
well,
cheaper.
UK.
It's the look. It's the look that they don't like where the price is. Sorry, go ahead, Don.
Well, actually, there's lots of things about it to begin with. First of all, their population is higher, about 3 times the population of Canada. I don't know what the exact stat is, but it's somewhere around there. They never made it overseas, so there's plenty. In fact, certain periods there's almost no American copies overseas. They had a price guide that actually kept track of that at one time. I don't know if you ever see the price guide for Great Britain in the printed form. They have an online version of it now, but they used to keep track of comics that were not distributed as American editions in UK, where only the UK Kais variant ones exist in the United Kingdom. So they always considered them inferior books and discounted them where they wanted the American copies. So British people from Britain were buying stuff for me for years, especially the ones that had no US printing sold in Britain. So
there you go.
Also,
I've always been.
There's even Stephen Crunch who wrote a lot about this in our articles in our guide. So he's a specialist in UK price variants. So take a look at the guide, and he has extensive articles written on UK price variants.
Well, if you want
the key point to me was always, are they reprints or not? I mean, growing up as a collector,
right.
I wanted to know if a book was printed in 1974. This is not a UK. This is a French edition.
Yeah.
Is it from 1974 if I pick up the French edition?
No.
Or is it from 1975 or 76? And And if they did not change the date inside the book, it looks like it's from 74, but that's a lie. It is a reprint. It is from 76. And in my head, there's no reason that a book like Amazing Fantasy number 15 would be a first print with a UK price on the cover in my head. In reality, it happened. In reality, there is a UK edition of Amazing Fantasy number 15. It is a first print. It is extremely rare. And the idea that it is cheaper just makes me excited, except that I don't have that much money.
I know
to
it's
spend.
unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of the keys. I actually had to discount them to sell them, and yet they're I mean, in the U.S. market, you don't see them at all. I mean, on eBay, I guess you see them now. But like I had a Tales to Astonish 27 that I basically had to give 40% off to sell it because it was
that's insane. It should be,
it should be 5 to 10 times the price. But no, I sat there for 5 years, and eventually I just sold it for 40% off, and I was done with it.
Do you think that's going to stay that way, or do you think?
I think they're well. You know, it's a function of price. The higher the price, the less likely you're going to get a close to U.S. price on a book like that.
But it's also mentality, Doug. It's also mentality. People have this notion that it's different for those.
Reprint. They think it's a reprint.
Yeah, they do.
It took time, you know, but we don't want to ship it there.
Well, it's the same thing with what do you call it? Restored books. The higher the value of the restored book, the less you're going to get as the percentage. So you have a $100,000 book, you're probably going to get $10,000 or less for it. But if you have a $200 book, you might get $120 for it.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the way it is, because people don't want to spend money on something you don't know what it is.
Here's another cool question, guys, from Brian. There are also Australian price variants. What's the panel's perspective on those? I understand they're even scarcer than CPVs.
Well, I'm not
sure.
Much
tighter time window. Not as many are existing because of the amount of time. Like we talked about a 4-year or 5-year looking at the CPVs window for EC, or 7 or 8 years, for Marvel. Those Australians on Marvel are, is it 3 years maybe? So it's a much tighter time frame, and there's far fewer PGC graded copies.
I think there was New Mutants 98 though, wasn't there?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
I think it was. Yeah, that was.
Are they grabbing money? Are they garnering good money at the auction and such? Are they?
People don't know. People don't know what to make of them.
Oh,
those that actually collect Australian price variants, because I have some. They actually do get a premium once people know what they are and people that are looking for them, but they don't always get premiums that are really super high. It just depends if the right buyer is there. A good question would be to ask an Australian, hey, how many do you collect? Do you have them? And I think there's somebody in the Overstreet that writes about them every year, but they are hard to find. I guess it would depend the issue, and it's considering that Australia, obviously, do you find them in North America as easily as the Canadian ones? It's just the borders right there. It's obviously a little bit harder.
Were the Australian ones printed in Quebec too? Same deal?
Well, the British ones were. Okay. So and like they're part of the Commonwealth. So I don't know for a fact, but I think they might be. Okay. But they did have their own companies that printed Australian versions of Marvel, but they were basically reprints.
So they were back to that reprint question again.
The reprint ones by a different publisher that were not like UK. Marvel of UK is different than Power Comics, for example, which was by, I think, was it Oldham's or one of those companies. Okay. So if it wasn't by the actual publisher in a foreign setting, then it might not be an original. Okay. But it's very confusing.
Yeah, I guess it can be. But you know what, guys? We've got lots to cover still, too. I know you guys want to plug the website. So why don't we jump over to, and you can see behind Angelo there, CPV priceguide.com. And I actually have it right here. Boom. Ange, do you want to take us through it and maybe
Sure. Well, if you look at it, this is the front cover. If you scroll a little bit lower, because I don't have a handle of your screen.
Yeah, sure.
These are also down, start from the top. You see, we start from Bill, Tim, Paul, Greg, obviously is here, John, Jaden, Ben, Conan from my comic shop, Doug, myself, and there's Steven for UK price variance. And there's also articles, Sal as well, who helped out quite a bit, contributed enormously. And on the right-hand side, as you can see on the right-hand side of the names, you have market reports and articles, many of them. Top 50 variants, even top 100, noteworthy sales, top 20 magazines, which we'll get into a little bit later on. Also images we have to help people. So, we also have how many are graded. If you click also on any one, if you notice above 2024 editions, you see, you can say jump from A to Z. Click on any title you're looking for. You see the numbers there. And also according to publishers, Archie, DC, Gladstone, Harris, and also previous guides. So I love the A, B, C, the A to Z, because I just click right away. I'm always on it. I prefer that because I'm all over the place. And if you scroll a little bit lower, so we'll take a look at the books shortly, but no, stop. Okay, there you go. Advisor market reports, as you can scroll down. Continue scrolling down. You see the reports, what people write about.
Okay. Oh, there's Greg. Greg wrote one right here. There's one of Greg's articles. Yeah. And Angie wrote one right here. Another one when you wrote. Okay.
This is for this year, the 2024. Every year we come up with a new guide.
Okay.
That's very important. So it changes every year. Like top 50 CPVs. See, number one is a G.I. Joe. So let's keep in mind sometimes, where do we get these prices from? It's not just us. We get dealers that send in information. GPA, which we use also religiously. We also get tons of individuals with proof of their sales. So it's not just only on eBay. It's conventions. There's a dealer in Montreal. He is one of the top CPV dealers, I guess, in the world. And he sells so many that once he showed me and I go, wow, this is only CPVs? He goes, yes. But he wants to remain anonymous. No, it's not me. But it's awesome. If you take a look on the right-hand side, you see G.I. Joe, this is the number one, top 50.
Yeah.
And you can see that's the cover price. That's the image. Then you see value for 9.2. It dropped $330 from the previous guide. And on the right, CGC, if you click on that, it shows you the census, how many. So click on the census, and then below that, there's a paragraph that each one is going to write. Oh,
I don't want to go there.
Well, if you click on it, you get the census right away.
Okay. All right.
And then if you scroll right underneath the G.I. Joe image, you have CGC's label notes and also our sales, what happened, what people report to us. So it's a community. People coming from CGC boards, awesome people. Like there's an individual that opened up, he has a blog, CPV David, and he's awesome. And there's so many wonderful people there as well. Also on CBCS, you have on Instagram, you also have on Facebook. There's communities everywhere on CPVs. If you continue scrolling down, the number two is the Archie.
We should point out one thing, that these prices are for raw copies, eh?
Correct.
Oh, that's raw.
Yeah, these are raw copy prices. So we're talking multiples for CGC or higher graded copies, right? This is just kind of a guideline, right?
Now these are American prices too, I would assume.
American funds.
Okay.
Prices are American funds, but the prices are for raw copies, not for CGC copies.
Okay.
So I think at its height, the reason that G.I. Joe came down in prices, everything went through the roof during COVID, and then prices came back down.
For sure.
So they didn't really drop it. It was just kind of an overall market correction, eh?
Mm-hmm.
I guess Greg would know about that, eh?
Oh yeah, we all do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So number 3, number 4. These are the ones we've already shown as well, too, right, Ange?
Yeah.
Those are the top 20 that you've shown this already. But you could scroll down below 20 and you see it continues all the way till 100 technically. But it stops at 50. It stops at 50. And there's a lot of information. It's a labor of love from us on the guide and the entire community. There's a lot of people behind this. Hundreds.
And it's a free website, right? No, there's no membership fee.
It's free.
Right. So unlike other price guides, guys, you can come on here and check this out free of charge, and check what your CPVs are potentially worth. Right.
See what the noteworthy sale prices are right there.
These are CGC prices now. Yeah.
That's right.
So, yeah, look at that. Look at Marvel 2-in-1, a 9.9. Wow. Well, no, we're not going to talk about that, are we? No.
You know what's in that issue, though? A lot of people don't realize it's the first appearance of the Thing as the champion, which is kind of a hidden key that most people don't even know it exists. But
Okay.
I think a 9.8, even the American one, goes for about $300 or $400.
Okay.
At least last time I looked. I don't know what the current value is, but
look at this ASM 238 and a 9.8. Wow.
yeah.
8,100 US this is last year. September. So not too long ago. You know? Are these is this updated regularly, this area, or is it every couple of months, or as sales happen? How do you guys
So once a year thing.
Okay. So
Yes.
these are noted. Okay.
This is,
when was this downloaded, Angelo? Do you remember?
I believe it was November when the guy came out, and Benda puts it all together. Ben does a tremendous amount of work.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
unbelievable.
yeah.
It's crazy. I don't know how this guy sleeps at night.
Now you are again, and you are a huge collector. You again, I
Sorry,
go ahead.
1 second. Can you go to the screen? Like, I wanted to show something that CGC wrote. One of the images that had a Star Wars 81 that I sent you, the image that's on our website.
On this website?
Yeah, but I sent it to you. Remember, I showed the pictures where it starts with CGC's comments. A comment from CGC.
This one here, I think. This one here?
No, not that one.
By email? Was it by email?
Yes, I sent it by email. That one.
There it is. Okay, yeah.
Kevin, you want to read that? The top paragraph? That's CGC wrote that.
Because of sustained currency movement, publishers could no longer afford to charge 60 cents for a comic in Canada, so they started to require 75 cents from Canadian comic fans. These batches of Canadian copies were the smallest ones printed, making the Canadian price variant the rarest type of available prints, a trophy for collectors.
Oh, yeah.
That's CGC writing that.
Right.
And if you go back to the previous screen that you had where you show type 1A,
Yeah.
the newsstand, I know
Okay.
John McClure had a lot to do with this with Doug, but not that one, the previous one, no, this one.
Yeah.
See the difference population-wise? That's what we're referring to. Even the fact that the Quebec effect, the 9.8 would actually be lower, so because of the French population. Just to point that out, there's a lot of information on this one page that if people look through and scroll through and read, they'll gain a lot of knowledge. And also, Greg wrote amazing stats on CPVs and what they're graded, sold. So people should also read up on the articles like Greg wrote. He has his expertise is in statistics. That's what he does for a living.
Well, definitely. I mean, if you guys are contemplating getting in, if you already are CPV collectors or you're thinking of getting into collecting CPVs, this is the place to go. Obviously, this is, again, as Angelo said, a lot of guys have put a lot of time and effort into this just for the love of it. You know, it's not because they're trying to make a buck off this website. It's because they want to document the stuff, let people know what's out there, and to educate people about CPVs. Because again, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and a lot of people are not really sure, and some people are kind of standoffish with it because they don't know what to look for. Well, this website,
I like Greg's comment there that some people are angry about the CPVs because they think it's downvaluing their American Direct Edition.
Oh, geez.
We're not trying to downvalue American Direct Editions. We're just trying to point out to you, if you like scarcity, buy something scarce. Well, buy the newsstand if you're an American, or buy the Canadian newsstand if you want something that's truly scarce. Really, the only real difference is the price on the cover and the barcode. There's not a lot of difference, but the fact is, it's the same reasoning as buying a 9.8 instead of a 9.0. How do you make a really common comic scarce? You look for the highest possible grade. How do you make a really common comic even scarcer? Look for a variant. So there's the U.S. newsstand, and there's the Canadian newsstand, and then there's the British ones. And any type of variant makes a common item scarcer, and this is what people like.
And I'll tell you, the reason I like these variants is because the companies that were publishing these didn't do it because to make variants.
No.
Right? It was because of business decisions that these variants were just made accidentally or whatever. Nowadays, you have this artificial, artificial attempts to create variants, right?
Yeah.
Oh, there's a 1 in 50, the one in, dealer incentives or the Fan Expo variants. I listen, I'm not going to slag anybody that's into buying variant copies. Everybody buys what they love. I never liked the gimmicky nature of it myself personally.
Yeah.
But these are a different story because these kind of came out of the business of comic printing.
These were vintage before people even cared about variants or knew what a variant was.
Exactly.
So
you could buy.
And the fact that Doug actually made some of the difference in whether or not these existed, he made that difference in that first month that they existed. In the first few weeks they existed, he either went out and got a bunch of them and they survived, or he didn't, and they went through the normal process. And so I think one of the things that people like to do is they like to complain, number one, when something goes against them. So they went to a comic shop and they bought direct editions, their whole collection, and they have number 1 through number 800, and they've never missed one, and they don't have any rare variants, and boo, 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 they don't want to hear about rare variants. Everyone else did the same thing. So you have to ask, what did only a few people do? If only a few people did certain things, like keep a book in 9.6, 9.8 condition during the 1980s, when you had to use your mom's saran wrap or something, or a paper bag, those people who did that thing that other people didn't do, they have done something to help collectors in a way that no one else did. If you just went to the shop and you bought your books and you put them in a box and you kept them in a closet, you haven't done something special. You've done the common thing. You've done what everybody else did. So you find out your book is common. You find out everybody else has one just like
and
it.
all
Don't be mad at us pointing out that you did what everybody else did. And then we start talking about what didn't happen. What didn't happen was they printed 30% Canadian books. That never happened. There was no reason to ever print 30% Canadian. Even that would be a 70% one style, 30% another. It wasn't like that. It was more like 80-20, or it was more like 90-10. And then we go look, and it's more like 3% are Canadian price variants. And then we go look, and even fewer are high grade. And you put the numbers to it. And then you want to complain about the numbers. Well, go back to third grade and talk to your third grade math teacher.
Exactly.
Because there's no complaining with numbers. If 1 out of every 50 is a certain way, and it doesn't matter how often you do it, that's 2%. You can complain about it, or you can get with the program. 1 out of 50 is this, 49 or something else.
Exactly.
Just get over yourself.
Math is the great equalizer. You know what they say? Numbers don't lie.
Well, they do, but if we keep doing them, they can't lie every time.
That's right. No, there you go.
As we pay more attention, then they self-correct themselves over time.
Yeah.
So
you see, Canadian price variants newsstands, they're first prints, U.S. published on the same printer with the same ink, and people didn't like those barcodes, so they wanted a Spider-Man, logo. They didn't like those barcodes either. So there were so many things that Greg, just emphasizing what Doug and Greg are saying. It's like it naturally evolved that, oh, wow. Now that we look back, I go, those were actually the ones that we should have collected because no one collected them, which is basically a great point over and over again, which it makes sense.
Well, there's a kind of a thought process with some people out there that us Canadian dealers are trying to make our inventory more valuable. Well, you know what? We bought direct editions like everybody else. I wanted 50% off. I didn't want 30% off from Canadian News. So 99% of my inventory from the 80s is direct editions. 1% is from collections that came in from people who bought them from the newsstands, except for the rare exceptions like the number ones I restock, like Wolverine #1. So There you go.
You know what? Why don't we have a look at some of? We're getting to almost the hour mark here. I don't want to make a 3-hour video here, so let's.
Yeah.
Why don't we? I know Ange brought some of his own collection to share with you guys. He was going to do it live, but we had lots of glare and lighting problems. But so Ange, what he did is he put a little PowerPoint together with some of his. I guess these are your top books or more your interesting books, Ange.
I just picked a variety of books. First come, first serve, because with a 5-year-old at home. Hi, Jordan, if you're still awake. He said, "Papa, don't forget to say hi to me."
Oh, there you go. Hi, Jordan.
They're just general books that I pulled out that are key books, just to show a variety at different prices and things that are pretty much popular. And some of them have an interesting story behind it.
Okay, so I do you want to go back to the very beginning, or we'll start right here? Is it okay to start here?
Sure, you can start wherever you like.
All right, let's start right here. Okay, so let's zoom in a little bit.
Well, just basically, actually, if you start from the first one, because I had some notes if I need to.
Okay, hold on. Let me go here.
Transformers. If you can't, it's okay.
No, I can. Hold on. I can do it here. Hold on. Bump. There we go.
I wrote some stats down, but
there we go.
I don't want to be embarrassed for the Greg in case I make a mistake.
Now, are these books for sale, Angelo?
No, they're not.
They're not for sale. Okay.
No. Transformers, for example, 3% of the population that are graded for CGC, according to GPA, sales, and all that, and CGC, 3% are CPVs, and 97% are direct and newsstands. Very important. Look, 9.8 sold for almost 4,000 US, and a newsstand 3,098, and a direct 1,386. 7,195 graded altogether. It's pretty interesting to see that only 3%. That's what you have to remember, 3%.
So out of all graded Transformers number ones, and there's probably quite a few of them out there, 3%. We're talking 9/8 or overall?
No, overall, but there will be more that are going to be graded. So
sure.
The guide is not 100% accurate. We're always improving it when we get people writing to us, but it's a constant improvement. But yes, overall, right now, according to CGC, I did this a few days ago.
All right.
And Greg, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
You're close enough.
There you go. How about this one here, Beetlejuice number 1?
I bought this book from Sal, who's also on the guide. I love Beetlejuice, and my son as well. And obviously, Harvey, the paper quality is not very good. So getting high grade with this book I think is just on the way up, because the movie's coming out, this nostalgic feeling about Beetlejuice. And I have a beat up copy. If you can, are you able to screen back to me?
Yeah, right here.
I don't know if you guys can see this, but if I open it, I want to show you something pretty cool.
All right.
I'm a little nerd looking at these things.
It's okay, go ahead.
The smell.
Oh, yeah.
Just,
I can smell it from here.
Yeah. Let me open it up. Look what you get, an ad. And obviously, there are other books had the ads for this as well. Mm-hmm. Back to the Future.
And Beetlejuice.
Oh, yeah.
Back to the Future. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
People love that book.
And yeah, Monsters in My Pocket, as you can see. Very, very interesting book. And there's also one more, I think, somewhere in here. Anyway, you get the point what I'm just trying to say. There's some interesting stuff in this book. But I think this book is, I think, for me, it's a prime quality of Harvey that I would say. And then there's other ones that have, the color difference and all that.
Right.
I have more research on that as well.
Okay.
Very interesting book.
Here's one we see quite a bit of, don't we?
9.8, no, but in 9.6 you'll see them. I got this one from a collector. His name is Eddie, and he must have rare comics. I traded for this book, and I think Walter Duralia and Jay, who were also on our guide, they sold one through Ice Collectibles for a little over $2,000 something a few months ago. Another copy.
Nice.
And what does the American one go for? The American Direct, Angelo?
I'll take a look right now. In 9.8, it goes for $183, the last sale.
Wow.
There you go.
What did Ice sell theirs for?
$2,085.
US?
And it's the Canadian price variant overall graded 1%, and the rest 99%. There's $4,241.
Wow.
Batman Canadian variant 9.8s are really scarce. and they're bringing crazy prices if they ever hit the market. What was that last one? It wasn't even a key issue that you were telling me about, Angelo.
I don't recall which one.
Was there one that went for like $2,000? It was a non-key issue,
Um,
or maybe it wasn't you. Somebody was telling me recently.
no, probably I don't recall. I don't recall.
Anyway, the Batmans in 9.8 are quite scarce. If you actually check the buyer's guide, they had this massive telephone book. It had the print runs. So the print runs of Batman in the just under, I think was between 350 to 400 number range. The print runs are somewhere in the 75,000 copy range in total. So if we're looking at a CPV, we're talking 2% of that.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not much at all.
And then trying to find a 9.8 yet in a market of newsstand editions. So the Batman 9.8s in that period, they're incredibly scarce. And
You gotta go for the key books, though.
Yeah.
Now here's a question that kind of goes with your next comic book right here. Which is the rarest CPV? Blip number 1, and you know what we got right here? A blip number 1.
Yeah, I think the question is in front of the barcode, but yes, this is the Canadian price variant, $1.25. It is the rarest one. It is the 9.6 is the highest grade as well.
Oh, wow.
There are 4 and 9.6. That's all, and all the books here are all top grades that I'm bringing. And by the way, a number of these books, guess who pressed them? The doctor himself.
I was going to say, actually, this book rings a bell.
Yeah, I don't remember if it was this one, but you did press a blip for me.
Yeah, you probably.
Maybe this one or the other.
I think you probably looked at it. What is this?
Yeah. Oh, I recognize that kid from Little House on the Prairie.
This is the first appearance of Mario and the first appearance of Donkey Kong.
Oh, wow.
In comics.
Yeah.
So what's a book like that worth? Because with the video game stuff going crazy now too, right? It's
video games is big now. Doug, I sold a few of them. This is a big book. This is a very big book, and the higher the grade, the better. But they've gone for premiums. For example, a 9.8 direct has gone from 1760, the 12-month average according to GPA, and the last one sold for $1,500 US direct.
And this is 9.6 is the highest CPV you can buy.
Yes.
How many are on the census?
19 on the census for Canadian price variants and 528 for direct and newsstand combined.
And how many 9.6s? How many CPV 9.6s are there?
A 9.6 is 4.
4 of them. Wow. Okay.
And it's 3% of the population. So that's pretty interesting. And 97% makes up newsstand, US newsstand and direct.
That's awesome. That's a cool book. What do we got next here? Let's see. Oh, look at this one, guys. Woo! That's a one of a kind, I think.
This is a 5 signature with Stanley as well. It has the most signatures from what I've seen. Maybe unless there's another one, please correct me, anybody in the audience, because I like to be factual as much as I can. So 5 signatures, 9.8 Stanley on it. So what does this go for? I wouldn't have a clue because it's never been sold.
Well, I know CPV 9.8s are going north of 4,000 Canadian, right? I would think.
The regular ones, just regular for these ones, 252s. I think they were going for about. Did I make a mistake here writing this down? I believe so. About $1,400. The last one sold for direct 9.8. 1,400.
Direct, yeah, no.
Direct, yes.
Canadians go for a lot more than that.
The Canadians about 3,500 to 3,200 to 3,500.
US.
I've seen one sell privately for 4,000.
Yeah.
I've seen either other one sell for 5,000, just without the CPV, no signature on it.
Again, guys, this is how popular these CPVs are. I saw in my shop right in front of me a client trade his 9.8 Universal Label 252 Canadian price variant for a Hulk 181. All right. So, yeah, people are crazy about these price variants. They just are, you know. What do we got next? This is pretty exciting. What else we got here? Oh, what's this? Archie.
This is the first Cheryl Blossom. And basically, there's two of them in 9.8 Canadian price variants. And there's 69 graded in total for CPVs,
Right.
and 234 for the other newsstands, basically direct. So there's 303. So in other words, 23%. So I know that Doug, can you mention a little something about why the numbers are higher here? Because they didn't have something here for the Archies.
Well, it's actually it's more straightforward than you would think. Comic shops didn't carry Archies. I was one of the exceptions. And if I did carry them, I might have carried 5 copies. So they came mostly from the newsstand market. So there's not a lot of copy. And I was the guy who got it in the guide. This is the first appearance of Cheryl Blossom. The Jughead 325 is dated the same month, but this one, the Betty and Veronica, says on the cover, first appearance of Cheryl Blossom. So even though they're dated the same, this is considered the first appearance of Cheryl Blossom, and the Jughead 325 is considered the second appearance. But anyway, Cheryl Blossom was no big deal until what was that, the early 90s? They had a 4-part crossover. What was that called, Angela? You called a Love Triangle or something? Or
Yes, if I recall. Yeah, I could be wrong. Somebody correct me. It was, and then it was,
It was a 4-part story where the love triangle has always been between Betty, Veronica, and Archie.
Correct.
And then Cheryl Blossom came in and she won.
She stole the show.
Archie picked her in that 4-part series because she got so pissed off at Betty and Veronica that Cheryl Blossom became the one he picked in that storyline. So people went crazy, and then Cheryl Blossom became like one of the most popular characters in Archie. She got her own series. She was on the Riverdale TV show. She's been in everything. She actually disappeared for quite a few years in the late 80s. I think there's about 25 appearances in the first 3 or 4 years in Archie. And then she didn't come back till around 1990. And then the mid-90s, she started getting her own series and started appearing in a lot of things. So Cheryl Blossom is like is probably the biggest Archie key of the last 50 years.
Wow, okay. All right. What do we got next here? Oh, wow. Look at that. So wait a second. These are your books, right, Angelo?
Yes, they are.
Wow, gorgeous. Okay.
So this is
that's the Holy Grail right there.
That is the one.
Yeah.
For Storm Shadow, Silent Issue, cover. I guess I don't need to explain this, but there's 3,144 graded, and direct and newsstand 3,030, and Canadian price variance 114, representing 4% the CPVs and 96%. Greg, anytime you want to interject, if I make a mistake, please correct me.
No, I think these are actually good examples because we're going from different books at different ages and different publishers, and we're consistently hearing things like 3%, 4%, 2%. I mean, we don't know that we'll ever have the exact numbers, but if you can have this type of evaluation over and over, looking at right around 3%, I mean, what else are you going to assume? You know, it's somewhere around 3%. I mean, you've got to just kind of stick with that number in your head.
And the key books in Canadian price variant, if they show up, a lot more of them get sent in because they are bringing the premiums, so they might be even that 3% might be overrepresented.
Yeah, they could be. I mean, arguably, you want to do the math. 2%. If we wanted to say it's 2%, you would need another half. You would need another 50% to get from 2% to 3%. I mean,
yeah, and
because
it's such a major key, you could. I actually sold a fair to good when it was really hot. I think it was at 1.5, and what did it go for, Andrew? Remember, like $190 or something?
Something like that, correct? Yeah.
That's when it was just going insane during COVID.
You sold it. You sold it.
Yeah, I sold it.
I remember.
That's gorgeous. How many of these GI Joes do you have? I know you have this one at 9.8. Do you have any other like 9.6s or 9.4s?
I have a 9.6. I have a 9.4. I believe I have a 9.2, 9.0, and 2.85s. I love this cover.
You might as well go all the way down.
They're-
2, 5, 3,
they're,
5.
They didn't come cheap when I got them, that's for sure. No bargains at the time, but I got them from some really awesome people. Honestly, great guys that I met online, CGC boards, amazing people.
So this one,
I will mention names, but I don't know if they want me to mention their names. So
Okay.
wonderful guys.
but this book again, guys. If you're just tuning in right now, the Holy Grail of CPVs, my friends, right here. Only 198 in existence. Gorgeous copy. First Storm Shadow, right? That's his name. I'm not a big GI Joe guy, but yeah, it's a great copy. That's for sure.
And important because it's a silent issue.
There you go.
Silent issue. No words.
No words, just pictures. That's
Yeah.
the way I like it. I don't have to read anything. Look at the pictures. Now, this is an interesting copy. This is a very wholesome comic book, is it not? This is like one of the ones that the churches hand out.
This, if my wife would hear me, she'd probably say, "Angelo, what's wrong with you?" This is my favorite cover of all CPVs. I love this cover because I know it's a family show, but there's a lot of sexual innuendos, sexual explicit things going on around the border. In the image, teddy bear, but really in the red part, and also, it's pretty severe, but well done. I think it was Dan DeCarlo, right? Yes, and
Yeah.
I don't know what this guy was doing, but he's done this on more than one issue. Very interesting fella. That's all I could say. But there is an article that I wrote about this with pictures, and I expanded them in a previous guide a few years ago, 2018 or 19. If you have to scroll all the way to the bottom, but just take a look at one of my yearly articles. I really go into the blip number 1, and I go into this one back, I think 2018.
Wow.
But I can't get into it because
No.
they're going to kick us off of YouTube. But this, people want to run after bikini pictures and all that. Wow, guys, this is like another level. It should be. I couldn't believe they sold this to kids.
I know it's crazy. What you were.
You need your magnifying glass to see it, though, right, Angelo?
Yes, that's why I think he did it on purpose. But there's other issues prior to this one and after this one that have similar things because they were reprinted parts of the cover.
Yeah,
Blue,
that's right.
this and that.
Gotcha.
Guys, this should never have been sold to children. Never. This is like equivalent to a Playboy.
Wow. And then we got a magazine here, a Spectacular Spider-Man.
Oh, I think you skipped one.
Did I?
Did you right before?
No.
Oh,
No.
okay.
Oh, wait.
Okay.
8,
That's
8, and then
okay.
9. That's it.
It's okay. It's all right because I'll take out the stats when I see it. This is a spectacular. This is a 40-cent instead of 35-cent. Obviously, 1968 Canadian price variants, and if you could see, some of them are written 40-cent price variant. And I think Doug was the one who put this on Overstreet, right, Doug?
Yeah, that's many years ago. Yes.
And guys, I'm shocked at the price that they put it at in the Overstreet. This is so misguided. The price on this book, right, Doug?
No, it's like I say, it's probably 20 times scarcer than the 35-cent one. So
And
the fact that it's priced even in the same ballpark is ridiculous. But they don't know what it is. They have it as a 40-cent variant. They don't have it as a Canadian variant. So it's too mysterious for most people at this point. So it's a very overlooked book. But one day, when if all things are equal, this will be one of the big books of the 60s.
So, that being said, there are CPV books out there, such as this magazine, that you could probably get for a good price right now and just kind of stash away because there's a good chance it's going to, increase in value significantly in the coming years.
Just to point this out, Kevin, look at these stats. Look at this.
Sure.
Total, the regular ones, 344 of them,
That's
19 of them in 9.8, 36 in 9.6, 45 in 9.4. But the CPVs, 40-cent price variant, there's no 9.8, no 9.6, 4 only in 9.4. Total, 22 of them graded.
Wow.
Canadian price variants. That's equivalent to 6% of the total population graded. And a 9.4, one of them, and then they dropped a bit in price because somebody was selling them three at like 1 month after the other.
Yep.
$1,550 for the 9.4, and then they dropped after that because the
Right.
guy was selling, probably had all three of them, and he just discovered them. But fascinating. Is updated origin of Spider-Man, by the way, and very, very, very interesting.
That's
Beautiful.
very beautiful. All right, let's see what we got next here. We have Creepy.
It's obviously the artist, Bernie's cover, and I know Doug loves it as well, 9.8. And the magazines are hard to find also in 9.8, especially Canadian price variants. I know a lot of people don't get it. And it's really interesting because magazines are generally right now, I think, undervalued, especially CPVs. And it's starting to pick up.
Well, all the magazines are starting to pick up now. All the magazines.
And this is an all rights an issue, not just the cover. So
yes,
this is, even the American issue is very undervalued.
Yes, correct.
All right.
It's another one of Angelo's favorite. One of my favorites is Queen Kong on, is it Erie? What is it, 81, I think?
Well, it's going to be there, 81,
Have
yeah?
a look. Oh, it'll come soon.
This one is, let's see how many stats story
Oh, that's
here.
a good one. This is a good one.
First, Josie, highest graded Canadian price variant, and it's a 4.5. But the regular ones at, I believe it was, what was it? 30 cents, the regular ones? Guys, correct me, 30 cents?
25.
25, correct, 25.
Yeah.
The highest grade is 9.0, and there's 78 total, and only 5 of the 35-cent price variants.
Wow.
Yeah.
First, Josie.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah, quite the variety we got here. What else we got going on? Oh, here we go. We talked about 337 earlier.
Oh, this is special for a different reason. This is the first book ever got labeled as a Canadian price variant at CBCS. That everything else after this book got the Canadian price variant label corrected, and then a year later, CGC started doing it. This is the first book between the two companies
to ever start calling them Canadian price variants.
Continuity that I know of, because there might have been maybe, I don't know, in the past by mistake, I believe, but this is the first one in continuity that the change has happened permanently.
Okay.
And this is and it's signed, obviously. So, by the way, I'm sure there.
Hey, can I ask you something, Angelo?
Yes.
I think didn't CGC used to put Canadian edition?
Yes, before that.
That's the big difference.
Yes.
So rather than Canadian edition, which gives connotation of reprints,
but they're not.
They're not. So that was the big, for us, that was like a very important move to distinguish Canadian editions, which is what the 50s books by Bell Features and those companies were. Those are reprints, often at a later date. People didn't realize until these labels started showing Canadian price variant on them that they were the same date, off the same presses and all that. So it took a while. Well, 2001 it was when I started reporting them in the Overstreet. It took that many years to get it on a CGC label properly.
That's
and now they're going crazy, but it's still a big mystery to a lot of people who have never seen one or don't know what they are.
So what Greg's
what we're talking about
right now? Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's the Canadian edition, which probably not even the same date, might not even have the same contents, might have less pages.
Right. So these books that Greg is holding up, these Action Comics, these were Canadian price.
The Canadian edition.
Editions. These were reprints. Right. If you looked at the real Action Comics 118, it's different than this one. So that's it. Go ahead.
A lot of the 52-page comics had 36 pages in the Canadian editions, and the dates would be changed, the contents would be changed. Some of them they even butchered and mutated comics where they would have Marvel and DC mixed into the same book. It was a shit show, basically.
It sounds like it. It sounds like it. All right, let's see what else we got here. So many cool books here. Oh, and here's the I guess the normal one here without being signed.
This is again the Thor, but there's something different. You guys see something different here?
Something I can't read it.
Look at the label very closely underneath Marvel Comics.
Multiple covers.
Oh.
That's correct. So not only is it a Canadian price variant, it's also an error with multiple covers. Not one, not two, but three of them, all in 9.8 Canadian price variant.
Wow. Where'd you find
Wasn't-
that?
I got this from the auction I won. What's his name in the States? Late at night. Oh my God, I forgot his name. Peter. He has an auction site.
I'm not
He's
sure, but wow.
He had an Action Comics. Well, he's a big collector. I forgot his name. I'm having a blankout right now.
That's okay. That's
But
great.
Also, this is the first appearance of Better Ray Bill,
Right.
classic cover, and they just announced it twice this week, I believe, that he's going to be in the next Thor movie. So, and another thing, people say, "Oh, there's a lot of them." Like, yes, there are more of these, but look at the stats. Graded from CGC, 10,850 direct and U.S. newsstands, and the Canadian price variant 671.
Wow.
That means 6%. Versus 94%.
And this is another book that I went out and bought another 500 copies from Canadian News when I sold out in my store. So I actually saved a bunch of copies, and I think other dealers did too.
Yeah, but also, Angelo, 6% with one cover. This one has 3 friggin' covers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
And
one
all
of a
night-
kind. It's one of a kind.
it is. Yes.
Oh,
Well,
another thing. Another thing to note about this comic. Buyer's Guide, Comic Buyer's Guide put a best covers of all time book out, and I think this was considered the greatest comic cover of all time in that book.
Wow.
I don't consider it the greatest, but I like it, and I like Walt Simonson.
Yeah,
Of course, I like a lot of Golden Age classics. So,
of course.
and
Well, this
you
one's
see-
cool because he's smashing through the actual.
Yeah.
He's the whole cover's getting messed up, which is pretty nice.
So you see, the Canadian price variant is 75 cents, but the regular one will
Yep.
be 60 cents.
Right.
Well, the director would have both prices on it.
I meant to say, sorry, the single U.S. newsstand would end up having
60 cents. Yeah.
60 cents, correct.
Creepy. I recognize this one.
Yes, you pressed it. Not this one, you press another one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but you pressed 2 of them for me. But this book is so crazy undervalued. This one cost me an arm and a leg. It's the highest grade. This book is obviously from Harris Publishing, Resurrection issue. And it is the first Harris issue, Corbin cover. And I'm looking at the stats here, trying to read it out with my glasses. A 9.6 regular, 500 in 2022. 8.5, $149. I actually ended up trading that for a few books worth $500 US, my 8.5. So I was able to upgrade. So people still didn't pick up on this book. So you could still get them on eBay. You can find them, guys. Like if you go tonight, you could find them for very cheap, but they're hard to find the lower grades, but they're still worth it. They're undervalued.
All right.
So pretty cool. Beautiful cover.
Oh, I see this. Yeah, this is a nice one too.
This is I guess number 1 on our guide for magazines, Canadian price variant magazines. Vampirella 113 has a total of 19 graded CPVs, 212 graded, obviously the other ones. And a 6.5 off-white to white pages just recently sold a few months ago for $750 US. And a 9.4 regular goes for $901. So
There you go.
8% versus, this is low print run, bondage cover. And anyway, I think were they recalled or not because of the money issues with the company? Greg,
Well, Warren actually went bankrupt,
there you go.
and then I guess Harris bought the characters, and
That's
this is the resurrection like 4 or 5 years later after they went bankrupt.
Yeah.
That's
Same
awesome.
with the creepy that you just showed too.
Yeah.
Right?
This Vampirella is the holy grail of the magazines, the Vampirella.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry, I just jumped ahead. I think did I? Yeah, I jumped ahead.
yeah.
9.8.
This is once again my favorite magazine, and my wife says naughty, naughty. Hey, Tammy, you're not listening, Tammy. But I love the front cover and the back cover. Too bad I should have sent you the back cover. It's the complete reverse. King
Okay.
Kong with a woman, and here is a woman
With King
involving
Kong.
feminist power, and with King Kong in his hand. And this is also a famous cover. Anybody know what it is? Let's see if anybody guesses it from the audience. What famous artist, if you see it actually, what famous artist?
We have a little bit of a lag. Give them about 3 or 4 seconds to respond. So yeah, guys, you know which artist produced this cover? Let us know. And if you get it right, Angelo will send you this copy.
There you go. Oh, Angelo, I know what it is.
No, you don't. No.
My name is Pablo. Yeah, it's beautiful. I love it for so many reasons. It's also the artist. Doug is probably waiting to scream it out, or Greg is waiting to scream it out.
No, you know what? Oh, Frazetta.
There you
Correct. And in there also there's 8-page color story from Richard Corbin, and this whole story inside is based on the cover itself, which is so cool. And the back cover is beautiful too.
All the stories inside are basically based on King Kong.
Nice.
All new stories by all different artists. That's a Frazetta cover of Queen Kong.
Queen Kong.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What do we got next year? Okay. Seen this a few times in my life.
Oh yeah.
This first Hobgoblin, Canadian price variant at 98. And I believe there are a total of 20 of them that are graded in 98 CPV.
Wow, that's it, eh?
And the regular ones mixed with newsstand, 2 of them in 92, 864.98.
Wow.
So total graded is 12,634, and out of that, 12,280 are US newsstand and direct, and CPVs only 354, making 3%.
There you go, 3% again. That seems to be the magic number. Oh yeah, I've seen this quite a few times this year, actually.
So Voltron, first appearance in comics, and a total of 1,590 graded. 1,537 are the regular ones, and basically CPVs are 53 only, making it 3% of the total graded. And in 9.8 CPVs, there are 5. And 9.8 for the regular ones, 471.
Wow. That's crazy.
Comics, yeah.
And this was important because it was recently rebooted as a TV series.
Yeah, Voltron, they'll keep going back to the well for that one.
Oh yeah.
That's for sure. Okay, here's another biggie.
Obviously known by all the audience, his first appearance of Constantine. This is the highest grade in 9.6. There are 12 in 9.6. And look at the stats here. This is going to impress Greg, because he's a numbers guy. 1.6% total graded CPVs and 98.4% graded for the US newsstand and regular. So how many exist? Regular, 2 of them in 9.9, 438 in 9.8, 905 in 9.6. But the CPV, only 12 in 9.6.
No 9.8s.
No 9.8s. But only 12. Look at that. Look at the numbers. 1.6% graded are CPVs in total from every grade.
So when that first 9.8 hits the market, buy it immediately.
Yeah.
Before
Let's crack and press that.
Unless the person who owns it knows what it is, then you're going to be turning in your car.
Yeah, totally. That's gorgeous. This is the last one here, I think.
No, there's more after that.
Right.
Punisher Limited, number 1, painted cover. 2% are the CPVs that are graded, and 98% the US newsstands and direct. 9.8 regular, 666, and US newsstand combined. And for the CPVs, only 3 in 9.8. And I'm sure there's going to be ones that are not labeled properly. So always give or take an extra 1 or 2 or 3, maybe more, but also the other way around it works.
I pressed one of those 3. I know that much because one of my clients just got one back a few months ago. Not bad.
You pressed this one for me.
Well, I pressed 2 of them.
Yeah.
There you go. Mm-hmm. Nice.
So, and look how crazy this is. 4,875 graded for US newsstands and direct, and only 114 for the CPVs. Origin of the Punisher also.
All right.
And I
let's
think
see.
there's a Perseverance or something.
Of course, that Star Wars is this is the movie showcase here, right?
Tough book because of the black cover. One of them in 9.8. Total graded CPVs 27. Regular ones in U.S. newsstand, 26 of them graded in 9.8. Total 364 graded. The CPVs are 7% of the ones that are graded.
This is not the 1977 Star Wars #1. This is the mid 80s
No.
reprints.
Correct.
Marvel movie showcased across the top there. Just to make it clear for people watching.
Yeah.
Yes, it's not the number. It's not the first, not the original one. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's a giant and it's round bound makes it a little tougher to get in high grade, and the black cover too. So
Yeah, they always have usually bindery tears on these babies,
exactly,
right?
like those dollar comics from DC are just about impossible to get in 9.8 because of all the bindery tears.
All right, let's see what else we got here. Oh, there it is.
So this one is the Batman 423 McFarlane cover, pretty classic cover, and there are a total of 5,243 graded. Only 76 are Canadian price variants, and the highest grade for this is a 9.6. There's 4 of them. Maybe there could be others that are out there that are mislabeled, obviously. And total graded U.S. direct, U.S. newsstand or direct, 5,167. And how much does it go for? A 9.8 goes for $2,000, the direct ones. And CPVs, obviously, I think, did I write down a price, what they sold for? No. I know that they sold a little while ago, a few $100s for like an 8.5, 9. Don't quote me on it, but around there.
It'll be an ugly price, that's for sure. Well,
Yeah.
that's great, Ange. Thanks for sharing those with us. It's quite the collection you got there. And
a lot of people with a lot of nice books out there, great books. You know, it would be nice if people could display them, and it would be great. There's a lot of people with a lot of beautiful books. You know, so I'm just a drop in the bucket here.
well, listen, guys, we're hitting the 137 mark. We're going to call it a day. But before we say goodbye to all of you, let's plug you a little bit. So I'll go around, and you guys can let us know where people that are watching this stream can find you. If you want to plug your store, Doug, of course, I think you should do that. One of our watchers said, "Hey, have Doug plug his store." So yeah, let's do that. Let's go around. So Doug,
sure.
Yeah, where can we find you? Where can we locate you and get in touch with you?
I'm on eBay under my initials, which is DWS for Douglas Wallace Sulipa, and then
Okay.
Comic World CW. So on
Okay.
eBay, I'm DWS CW, and I have my own website, which is actually just an inventory list and not actually a shopping basket type site, which drives people crazy, but it's functional for me.
That's all that matters.
Anyway, my website is DougComicWorld.com. And if you were to print out everything listed in that site, there'd be about 20,000 pages of stuff listed there.
So don't hit the print button.
Nope.
Don't hit the print button.
No, there you go.
Well, great, Doug. Thanks for coming out tonight. Appreciate it. How about you, Greg? Where can we find? Where do you want to plug? Where can we find you?
Well, if you want to look up the CGC census data, obviously you can do that on the official website for CGC, but they don't have historical information about their census. I've been keeping that up about 20 years now or more, and at cgcdata.com.
Okay.
It's an old style search. It's probably pre-Google even, the way I've got the search set up. But you can put in part of a title, and it will tell you everything that's in the CGC census. You can pick a different date. You can compare 2 dates. Specific to Canadian price variance, in the title, you can just start typing CANAD and stop, and you can hit search, and it will bring up all of the things with the word Canade,
Okay.
which will include some of those Canadian editions, like the 1940s and 50s.
Right.
And it'll also, you can just choose that you only want to look at Marvel, and it will show you Marvel. If you want to look at 1982 through 1988, you can type those in as the start year and the end year. It's an old search style, but I have a lot of people that really like it, so I'm hesitant to make any changes. They've been using it for 20 years, and I don't want to change anything. So
I'm with you, Greg. Mine is ancient, but it serves its purpose for me.
Well, that's what makes a difference, right?
Yeah.
How about you, Angelo? Where can we find you?
Well, if you go on the front page of the cpvpriceguide.com, you get to see, for example, you reach me by email, angelovirone@hotmail.com. If you can go on it, all the way at the top. So angelovirone@hotmail.com. I love to trade. If I have copies, I don't mind selling if I could get another CPV or another price variant, because I'm more of a collector at heart. But I would also like to plug in people like Bill, Tim, Paul, John. You get to see Conan from my comic shop, Jaden from Capcan, Ben, who also sells on eBay. Go there. There's Greg, there's Doug. They have great stuff. If one doesn't have it, the other one might have it. You can trust all these individuals. I bought from all of them, and they're great, or traded, or some form or another. So it's good to trust people that you know what they're doing as well.
For sure. And guys, I'm going to put links. I have the main link for this website down below. I'll put links to all your websites down below when the stream ends. And hey, I want to say thanks for coming on today. I think it was a great stream. We learned a lot about the history of CPV and what to look for. All you bring your individual talents and knowledge to this part of the hobby that for a lot of people is kind of an unknown. So again, thank you so much for coming by tonight. And maybe we'll come back if we need to do a part 2 one day. Maybe we'll assemble it once again and do a part 2.
The sequel.
The sequel.
There you go.
Again, guys, thanks very much.
Just a little something.
Yeah.
Buy quality books as opposed to quantity in low grades, and never forget that rule. That's very important if you can.
Well, you know what? Before we go, we'll do that. We'll go around one more time. So Angelo just gave you a little bit of advice. I was going to ask that question. What people that are getting into CPVs, how should they start? What should they look for? You know, in a couple of sentences, not too much. So Angelo just told you quality, not quantity, right? How about you, Greg? What do you think, Greg?
Well, I would say know why you want the book in any version, right? If you have a reason that you want the book, no matter which type of book it is, it's that title, that issue, then you can ask yourself, well, how much would I like to have the hardest one to find, or the highest grade of the hardest one to find, or just a high grade copy of a regular edition, you know, whatever it is. But I often find myself buying a book and then asking myself later, why did I buy this book? If I can't answer it now, then it's taking up space. And so I always want to know the answer. Why do I want the book in the first place? And then how far do I want to go down the rabbit hole of the hardest to find in the highest condition?
Yeah.
Well, Doug, how do you want to finish it off?
Well, I agree with Angelo as far as investment goes. Buy the highest, because the sky's the limit on that stuff, especially these 10s that don't exist yet. They're going to be insane when they hit the market. But the other side of the coin is, if you don't have to spend the farm to collect Canadian variants, what you should do instead is collect the characters you want or the comics you like. So if you're a Batman fan, buy Batman comics. Who cares if you buy very goods? It doesn't have to be 9/8, but you're not buying it for investment. So if you're buying a character that you love, the investment factor is kind of the bonus. So buy it, and they're going to be cheap, because the lower grade ones don't go for that much. You can check the price on the site. They're, a lot of them are, $5-10, so it's not that much money. So if you want to try to get yourself a Batman run in any grade in CPV, it's not going to be that easy. There's not a lot of copies on eBay of all the numbers, so you have to buy them one at a time the hard way, looking through poorly constructed ads that don't say it on the title line. So
that's true. All right.
I went through. One gentleman about a month ago was down to, I think, 24 of them, and I got about half of them from him. But he was taking very goods and anything I had just to get him his numbers. So just completing that 3 to 5 year run, depending if it's Marvel or DC, is going to be a challenge for any title, but especially any title that's not in the top 10 most popular. If you want to try to put together like the Marvel Star runs, oh my God, good luck with that.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Well, again, guys, thank you so much again for being here. I'm going to say goodbye to our friends watching, and I'll come back to you guys in just a sec. Well, there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed that episode, that stream. I will put all the links down below when the stream ends. I only have one link on there now. I'll give all the links down there. If you want to contact, any of the gents that were on here tonight, I'm sure they'd love to talk to you about Canadian price variance. If you have any questions for them, they are the ones you want to talk to. And of course, any of the guys that are at their website, because these guys are all very knowledgeable, and more than that, they love this part of the hobby, the Canadian price variance. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in tonight. I'll be back on Tuesday with another live CGC unboxing. Well, I think I will be. I think another box is on the way back. So be sure to hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and hit the notification bell so you know when I do go live again. And until next time, my friends, take care. Have a great weekend, the rest of your week and the weekend. And again, see you on Tuesday. All the best. Bye for now.